Hello everyone and welcome to this segment of One-on-One. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk with Dr. Ray Cinnater. He is our guest today on One-on-One. Stay tuned.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.
And welcome back to One-on-One. As promised, Dr. Ray Cinnater back in the house. How you doing today, Doc?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Feeling good.
Things are good, huh?
Yes.
All right. A lot of people are familiar with you over the years, but a lot of people don't know your background, how you made it to Houma, and I thought that was quite interesting last time we chatted, but you weren't born in Houma.
No.
You evolved into Houma. But first of all, let's go back to the early years of Dr. Cinnater. How early can you remember back?
Well, I can remember part of World War II, but I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. About the age of 4, we moved to New Orleans. I went to grammar school in New Orleans, went back to high school outside of St. Louis to a military school, came back, went to Tulane, graduated from Tulane, and went on to LSU Medical School and graduated from LSU Medical School.
So you got a military background.
Yes.
In there. Now tell me, how was that different than, let's say, somebody around here going to Vanderbilt or E.D. White or Terrebonne or Bourgeois? How was that different?
Plenty. First of all, it was a military school. We got up every morning approximately about 6:15. We had uniforms, which happens to be the uniform of West Point. And we would march to breakfast, go to class, come back for lunch, go back to class. Then about 2:30, 3 o'clock, we had time for sports, football, baseball, basketball. Then every night we had study hall. We would go to study hall at maybe about 7:30 and would last to about 9:15. Went back to the barracks and then went to bed. Now, if you made good grades, you studied in your room. So
and if you didn't make good grades,
you went to the library and studied.
Okay. Now, how old were you when you went to military school?
From the age of 14 to 17.
There's a story there somewhere, right?
Not really.
You wasn't, maybe somebody was trying to keep you in line?
No.
That was just the thing, that was just where you were going?
Right, correct.
Okay.
My brother went to that same military school.
All right.
And I'm from St. Louis, and all my aunts and uncles were living in St. Louis. And my parents wanted me to go to a school with higher education. And so I was sent off to the military school. Okay. It was not a bad boys' school.
That's what I was getting at. I was going to say maybe there was a little mischief or something.
No.
What were you like as a kid growing up? Typical young boy?
Typical. We played sports. We played football, baseball, basketball the year around.
Now, baseball was your sport, right?
Yes.
You were pretty good at it from what I hear.
Well, I used to play, yes.
Okay, now tell me about your baseball career. How far up did you get?
I wanted to either be a doctor, a neurosurgeon, or a baseball player. Since it didn't pan out to be a baseball player, I became a doctor.
Okay. Baseball, I mean, you grew up in New Orleans playing baseball?
Yes.
Was that one of your loves?
Yes, it is.
What position?
Pitch.
You had a pretty good fastball?
At one time I did.
Okay. And that was your dream, maybe, to make it in the majors?
Yes.
Okay.
To become a St. Louis Cardinal, since I was born in St. Louis. And I went to high school in St. Louis.
Really?
Right outside of St. Louis.
Who are some of your idols in baseball?
Well, you got to go back to the 40s. Stan Musial, Ted Williams, Enos Slaughter, Whitey Karatsky, who played third base for the Cardinals. You got to go back many years.
Right. But that's all names that still ring true today.
Right.
So that I didn't know about you. I didn't know you were interested in
In
baseball.
fact, I have a baseball at home signed by the 1947 world champion St. Louis Cardinals.
Wow. You got it up on the mantle?
It's in a drawer.
Probably a good spot for it.
You're right, it is.
Should be in a safe.
You're right.
All right. What did you, first of all, I want to find out the year that you decided that you were going to go into pre-med. How did all that take place?
Well, growing up, I either wanted to be a baseball player or a physician. When I went to high school, went to Tulane, where I decided to be a physician.
Okay. Any reason, or what made you make that decision? Did you finally realize, hey, I'm not going to make any money playing baseball, so I better pick something?
Well, back in those days, baseball players were not making much money, not like today. And education-wise, I thought being a physician would be much better.
Okay. You go to school, you
Yes.
get your medical degree,
Yes.
and then you end up in Houma, from New Orleans to Houma.
Yes.
How?
Well, it was basically over a game of gin rummy. Now, my father was an automobile dealer in New Orleans on St. Charles Avenue, and I used to go down there quite frequently and play gin rummy with him. So one day, maybe in about 1965 or 66, I left the charity hospital, caught the streetcar because we had to go by streetcar, went down there and was playing gin rummy with Dad, and Dr. Philip L. Cinnater came in. Now, Philip was one of Dad's customers, and he knew him very well. And we sat down, we talked. He told me they were building a clinic in Houma, which turned out to be the Houma Medical and Surgical Clinic. And he asked me to come down to Houma and look. And I came down here, I looked, evaluated, and ended up in Houma in 1967, over a game of gin rummy.
That was right around the time the Saints were getting kicked off, too.
Correct.
Were you a big Saints fan?
Yes, and still are.
Did you go to the first game?
Yes.
Opening kickoff, John Gilliam takes it all the way for a touchdown.
Correct.
It's been downhill ever since. Huh?
You're right. I'm one of the original season ticket holders, and I still go to the games.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
Something just in knowing you and talking to you that you really have a zest for life. You like some of the funner things in life. Am I right or wrong?
Correct.
Where do you get that from?
Well, I guess I get it from my dad. Dad enjoyed life. Mother enjoyed life too. Mother was a housewife and Dad, of course, worked.
Where you get your sense of humor at?
Oh, I guess from probably my mother.
Because a lot of people you have a dry sense of humor. I'm sure a lot of people have told you that, but when you least expect you to fire off a comment is normally when you fire off a comment. It's
Correct.
worked pretty well for you over the years.
Oh,
hasn't it?
yes, it has.
Some of the gang you hang around with were pretty good at one-liners also.
Correct.
Did this make for great conversation and camaraderie?
We used to meet this group of individuals probably about every Friday night at one of the houses and have coffee and cake and cookies.
Let's name them. Mr. Brady,
Mr. Elwood
Barlow.
Brady, Mr. Barlow, and Mr. Buquet.
Yeah.
Yes. We used to meet about every Friday, and we used to talk. We solved all the problems of the world. None of it occurred, but we solved all the problems.
Right.
We used to take trips every year, the 4 couples. We traveled all over the world, and Unfortunately, last year, the 3 died right around Carnival and Easter. And last year was the first year since 1973 that we did not make a trip.
Yeah. How, and here's the question, and it really is a great story. How did 4 personalities like you all, you being a physician, obviously, there's a big personality there. Mr. Elwood Brady, who, you know, politician type, public servant, just
Direct.
bigger than life, straight at you kind of guy. Mr. Ken Barlow, who was involved in just about everything, and Mr. Buquet, who owned just about everything. How did y'all mesh together?
We did, believe me. We all had our own personality. We all were in different type of businesses, and we met. We got along very well. The 4 wives are personal friends, and we got along very well. In fact, on these trips we took every year, those 3 men made me the banker.
You had all the money, huh?
Oh no, oh no, I did not have all the money. I think there's some of them who had a lot more money than what I have. But I used to be the banker, charge everything, you know, on the trip, the meals, and whatever we did. And when we came back, I got all the bills, added them all up, divided by 4, gave them the bill, and that was it. We never questioned any bills.
And that's what I'm getting at. There's a lot of people watching this show, especially the younger generation. A lot of people who are in arguments with their business partners, arguments with their brothers or sisters over money. Here's 4 gentlemen who got together, all with personalities larger than life, and never an ill word.
Not a bad word.
What's the lesson in that for everybody?
Well, I think the lesson is everybody should be able to get along with everybody. We all have errors, we all have problems, but we should try to solve them and make things happen as good as we can.
The other question, how did anybody get a word in with that group?
It was hard. Between Ken Barlow, couldn't say a word.
He would carry 90% of it.
Oh, yes.
Good storyteller.
Oh, yes.
Good storyteller. So you end up in Houma in '67. Not a bad career after that. How many years now? Over 40.
40 years.
So obviously something grabbed you in Houma and made you stay. Was it the city? Was it the woman? Was it what made you stay?
Well, first of all, medicine in Houma back in 1967, Houma had a good medical history. They had good physicians. And there was room for growth as we got bigger. And the doctors got along relatively well together. And we had a good time.
How'd you meet your wife?
It was a blind date to a LSU football game.
Fun.
Fun, we had a good time.
All right. Love at first sight?
Well, I wouldn't say that. It grew.
You were in love with her, but she wasn't in love with you at first sight, right?
Probably so.
Okay. And then it kindled and got going after that?
Got going. We got married in 1960.
Okay. You mentioned something in your last statement that sort of hit me. Medicine in Houma. I'm familiar with medicine in Houma. We're surrounded by physicians who are sort of on the cutting edge of everything.
Yes.
In Houma, why did Houma become such a huge medical outlet?
Well, I think one of the things that started it was the Houma Medical and Surgical Clinic. We started in, the building opened in 1968. We started with about 13 physicians. And at one time we brought physicians in. We grew up to about 30. Some of them, a lot of them left the partnership, went out on their own. Then in the middle 80s, CIS started. And it just grew and grew and grew. The different specialties came in. So the hospital is has well-trained physicians.
How did the marriage take place between the older generation of doctors and the new generation of doctors? Because I've seen the younger generation eating out with the older generation, and the younger generation's using all these new procedures and everything, but they still ask advice from the older generation. So tell me the marriage there.
Well, I think it has to do with education and the art of medicine. When you get out of school and training, you have the book knowledge. A lot of the doctors are trained in an institution where they don't see many patients. We see a lot of patients over a period of years. We learn a lot of the art of medicine, how to relate to patients. They teach us the new procedures, and we try to teach them the art of medicine.
Okay, makes pretty good sense. You have, I guess, your assistant or nurse assistant, I'm not sure if I'm using the proper term. She's been with you for how long?
My nurse I have in the office has been with me for over 30 years.
Obviously, something has worked.
Yes, they have trained me well.
There's the sense of humor, all right?
Well, I have the same secretary.
Okay.
The office manager is the same. I really haven't changed since the early 80s. They are used to me, and I'm used to them.
But there's obviously something that you have done, and we're all looking for that answer, something that you have done that has made them want to stay. What is the secret?
They have changed me to their personality.
So you have conformed.
Maybe.
For some reason, I don't believe that. Obviously, you hired right chemistry-wise.
Yes.
Is that the key?
That's the key. And then you got to keep them happy.
Yeah. So a little give and take everywhere.
Everything's give and take. Marriage is give and take.
Life is give and take.
You're right.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.
How do you keep your upbeat attitude? Whenever I see you, you're always pretty much the same person. How do you do it?
Well, of course, I do get my rest, and I enjoy life, and I try to do the best that I can, and to whatever I'm doing, and to enjoy life.
You enjoyed life when you were king of Mardi Gras.
King of the crew of Turanians.
Okay. Well, you're right, because we got to make sure we say Turanians,
right?
Because there's a separation.
Yes.
Tell me about it. How did that all come about?
Well, since being in Houma, I've been in the crew of Turanians and Houma since 1968. So I've been in both clubs. And I was king in 1980. And Ronnie Haydell, who you know very well, called me up one day and asked me to be king. And we spoke. His daughter, Tammy, was going to be queen, so I agreed to it. So in 1980, with Tammy, I was king, and Tammy was queen.
Did they have everything lined out for you? Like, they know how? I know Tammy, I graduated with, and I know the family very well. Was everything lined up for you? You just had to do what you had to do?
Ronnie knows Mardi Gras very well. He had everything lined up, what I had to do. Of course, Mardi Gras over a period of years have changed.
Right.
You know.
But they know the routine.
They know the routine, backwards and forwards.
Didn't it make it easy for you?
Yes, they did.
How much fun did you have?
We had a lot of fun.
Okay.
You know, Martin, I remember, well, maybe about 68, 69, when you were a young boy, how Mardi Gras changed. We used to get up on those floats with maybe 12, 14, 16 gross of beads. They were checked 200 beads back in those days. So you only needed about 16 gross of beads because we rode from the A&P Shopping Center to the auditorium. And we had those beads, we had maybe a case of Candy Kisses, a total of $100, and we rode. And we had a wonderful time.
Where was the A&P Shopping Center?
On Doug Road, on Grand Caillou.
Okay, all right. The old route, which we call
The old route, yes.
And when I started riding, it was the old route. There was something nostalgic about that old route. I haven't put my finger on it, but I missed the old route.
Well, I do too, because it was a quick 2.5 hour ride.
Now it's 4 hours.
Now, see, I'm getting ready to ride Sunday. I'm gonna have to ride Tuesday, and those are long rides. And I think age is catching up.
Well, it's still fun though, isn't it?
It is.
How has Mardi Gras changed from the time you started, besides the beads and everything? How's it changed as far as an event from when you started to now?
Well, the ball, the tableaus are basically about the same. You know, the tableaus, if you've seen one, you've seen them all. Right. The balls are, you know, following the tableaus. The parades have changed. The floats are much nicer. They are bigger. The route has changed. The people on the ground has changed. Right. You know, they used to be happy to catch one bead. Now, if you don't give them whatever they want, they cuss you out.
They don't like cups either.
No.
They don't like the balloons anymore.
No.
They want the whole big packs of the big beads, right?
They want football, basketball, the teddy bears. They don't want the old stuff.
Are you one of these guys that sort of hangs on to tradition? Because I sort of sense that you have a lot of tradition with you, but you have let go enough of it to enjoy the moment.
I'm basically conservative, and I enjoy the tradition of Mardi Gras, what it stands for. And I don't like these new changes that they have, but you have to go along with time. The population has changed. Their philosophy has changed. So you got to change a little bit. If you don't, you're going to get depressed, down in the dumps, and just go sit in a corner.
Yeah, because I know people who didn't want to change and got out the club. You still ride.
Yes.
And you still smile when you ride.
Oh, yes, I enjoy it.
You just got to go with the flow.
You're right.
What has it been like you being in, what has it been for you, being in medicine for over 40 years? Tell me about the span of your career, and if you had to go back and do it again, would you pick another profession or would you stay right where you were?
The last part is very simple to answer. I wouldn't change a thing. Very few things I would change. I enjoyed medicine here in Houma. The people, they are honest, they are good. Most of them are honest, most of them are good. But you have a wonderful population down here, and I wouldn't change anything.
There's a lot of young students watching who are going to be going into pre-med. Medicine has changed over the years. And I think in speaking with you a couple of weeks ago, paperwork has changed. How has that changed for you?
Oh, paperwork is terrible. I'll sometimes sit down at my desk and sign my name 200-300 times, where in the old days you never did. You didn't have to do histories and physicals on charts. Now we've got all the legal part of medicine involved that we didn't have back many years ago. But medicine has changed. I guess one of the things you wanted to ask me, or I'll bring out, is should young people go into medicine? Medicine is a wonderful profession, but it's not like what it used to be. We are too controlled. We used to be the boss. We are no longer the boss. Government, insurance companies are now the boss. They tell us what to do and what not to do.
But does that drive a veteran doctor like yourself a little bit crazy to walk into an office, Joe Blow's sitting there, and you know Joe Blow needs this, this, and this, but the government's saying they're only going to pay for this?
Yes.
It's got to drive you crazy.
It does, it does. But as we mentioned well before, you got to go with the flow. It's not good to be controlled under certain conditions, but they have their rules and regulations. They have their figures that's saying you got to do A, B, C, and D, and that's the way you got to do it. I see new paperwork coming across my desk every day. I saw one yesterday. A form from the hospital. If I want to get an x-ray report, I got to fill out, my nurses got to fill out a form, send it to the hospital so they can send me the report. Now, that gets to be ridiculous, but it's all things that they have to do. They got to keep records.
Mm-hmm. Record keeping, huh?
You're right.
All these HIPAA laws and everything. Now I guess everybody's got to protect himself.
A HIPAA law is good in one case. Nobody can walk into my office because I got charts on my desk.
All right. Let me ask you this, just point blank. Is it still fun when you go to the office? What's the funnest part of being a doctor for you?
Medicine is still fun, and for me, that's why I'm not even thinking about retiring. I enjoy it. The patients are wonderful. My staff is wonderful. The hospital is wonderful, and I have really basically no complaints. And I would really not change very much from what I'm doing now.
Okay. When you've had a rough day and everything just seems to be going lackluster, all these forms you've had to fill out, and by the way, you should get a stamp.
I do have a stamp.
Oh, okay, all right.
However, the stamps don't work on certain papers.
Okay.
You got to sign your name.
You got to put the pressure on it to get
You're
it through
right.
the carbon copy. But anyway, you've had a rough day. What does Dr. Cinnater do that relaxes him?
Well, when I go home, my wife knows nothing about medicine, so I don't talk about medicine. Medicine is not mentioned around the house. She fusses at me because she doesn't know who's in the hospital and who's sick. I said, well, nowadays, I can't tell her. But,
that's a good excuse.
According to the HIPAA laws.
Right.
But I divorce medicine when I hit the house.
Okay.
I have things that I do. I have my children, now grandchildren. I do play some bridge on one night, and I have things that I do.
Right.
And I go to bed early and get up early.
What time do you go to bed every night?
About 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Get up at 5:30.
5:30 every day?
Yep.
Saturday and Sundays?
Yes.
So it's all structured.
That goes back to my military background.
I was just about to walk back to that.
Right.
That has stuck with you your whole life, hasn't it?
Yes.
You think more people need structure?
In that way, yes.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
If I had to sort of tweak your mind a little bit and say, all right, Doc, your favorite band or your favorite song, what would you tell people out there?
I'm not a music man, so I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay.
Because I thought about it, and I really don't have any special band or any special type of music that I enjoy.
And there's not a song out there that when you hear it, you go, wow, that brings back some memories.
Oh, I'm sure there is some, but I may not even remember the names of the songs.
Okay. How about movies? You watch movies?
Yes.
What's your favorite, some of your favorite movies?
Well, I enjoy the old movies. I don't like the modern movies of the killings and the cussings and everything else, but I enjoy the old movies.
Like westerns?
Westerns.
Big Gene Autry fan?
He's before my time.
Okay, Roy Rogers?
Roy Rogers.
Roy
yes,
Rogers.
yeah.
Didn't mean to date you that much. So that was I guess that was the thing to watch back in those days.
Well, we used to, back, you know, you're talking about our young days. On Friday nights, we used to ride our bicycles. We could ride bicycles at that time and wouldn't have to worry about getting killed or murdered.
Right.
Down to the theater. You only needed a dime. It was a nickel to get in. You saw the movies. You saw the cartoons. At that time, you had serials, you know, Batman, Superman, Captain Marvel, and all those things. Right. And then you had a nickel left over for Coke and popcorn.
You got it. Wait, a nickel to get in the movie?
Yes.
And then
on
a
Friday
nickel
night
for a Coke and a popcorn?
Yes.
10 cents.
You can add.
Wow. Now today, I don't think you're getting in the movie for less than 10 bucks. I could be wrong. And the popcorn and the Coke, they cost more than it does to get into the movie.
A couple of years ago, I went to the movie with one of my grandsons. My wife and I walked up. I gave him, I looked, it cost me about 20.
You didn't give him a dime.
No. It cost about $20 to get in. And I like popcorn, so I had to go get popcorn. Then you had to get a Coke. That was about another $15. Before I sat down, it cost me about $35. And I haven't been back.
Oh, and that strikes a point with me. It's not that you can't afford it. You've done well. You've had a great practice. It gets down to principle, doesn't it?
Yes, it is.
That drives you bananas, doesn't it?
That does.
Okay. And why? I want to find out why. I want to get into your head a little bit.
Well, I think certain things should cost a certain amount. And when I think it's overpriced, now a lot of people think doctors are overpriced, but when things are overpriced, then I have a negative point of view and I won't go back.
Okay. And when you make your mind up,
it's made.
Done, huh?
It's made.
The manager of the theater couldn't call you back and say, all right, I think we overcharged you a little bit, would you come back? You're pretty set in your ways?
Yes.
Would your wife tell me that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I don't see that side too much because we see you out
at parties and Mardi Gras.
Parties and right, and social gatherings, but when your kids were growing up, were you a disciplinarian with that military background?
My wife raised my kids because we would go to work on Monday morning, you know, it's 6 o'clock, 6:30, and I may not see them again till Thursday night because I got home late, left early. So my wife really raised the kids.
Okay. But when Dad had to come in, when she called the bullpen in related to baseball, and she called in for the closer,
didn't have that type of problems with the kids.
She took care of business.
She took care of business.
All right, good, good. She'll love to hear that too, you're giving her credit.
Oh, she gets a lot of credit.
Yeah. She's been a good companion, hasn't she?
Yes, she has.
Yeah. Kept you sort of on the straight and narrow too.
She tries.
All right. When you look at your whole career and you look at that card game that influenced you to come to Houma, does it sort of ever make you reminisce that everything had just lined up for you and you were meant to be here, and although you were a New Orleans boy, Houma sort of became your place?
Yes.
Would you change that at all?
No. I enjoyed coming to Houma. I have enjoyed Houma. Houma has treated me very well, and I do not regret one thing.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.
Where do you think medicine is going to be in 15, 20 years? I say 15 or 20, but you know the way it goes now, maybe 5 years.
Well, medicine becomes outdated every 5 to 10 years, so you got to keep learning things. This is where the young doctors got to teach us. So in 5, 10 years, everything we do now is going to be outdated. I can picture medicine, knowing that medicine in 1967, 1970, when we didn't have an intensive care unit, of course we didn't have CAT scans, we didn't have MRIs. The lab and the X-ray department was closed at nighttime. They had people on call, but they weren't at the hospital. I can picture in 20, 40 years where medicine will change completely. You may not even have to have many doctors. Everything's going to be computerized. They're going to have scans, they're going to scan the body, they're going to tell you probably what's wrong, and then you go get it fixed.
But over the years, I find no matter what kind of equipment they have, they put you in a tube now that scans your whole body. They have supercomputers that look at your heart, but everyone still wants to talk to the doctor.
Yes.
You find that still happens?
The older generation do. The younger generation is different. They are being trained differently because, I guess, because of insurance. The way that medicine is, there's less doctor-patient relationship. You got all the specialties, and it has changed. The relationship between patients and doctors have changed. The older patients, they still want to talk to the doctor.
And there's also an art into getting that conversation down to a respectable time to where you can go and see your next patient.
Yes.
How have you managed that?
Well, I kind of look at the schedule and know how many I have to see. And then I look at my watch. And
So
then I know.
If there's 20 more, you can spend 5 minutes. If there's 50 more, you can spend 2 minutes.
Oh, I don't see 50 per day. That's not in my specialty.
Okay.
But sometimes, you know, you got some people you got to spend longer time than others.
I see. So, looking at everything, now here's the tough question. If you had to encapsulate your whole life, your New Orleans days to your baseball career at Tulane, all the way to Tulane, your medical degree, your marriage, your kids, your friends. And I went to different people and I said, all right, I'm gonna let Dr. Cinnater participate in this, but I'm not gonna let him have the final say so. So I'm sitting down with your wife and everybody and I'm going, I want you to describe Dr. Cinnater in one word. What would you hope the one word that they use, what would it be?
I'm generous.
Generous, okay. No one's ever used that word on one-on-one. Does that describe you? Pretty giving person?
I'm a forgiving person. And I think probably the word would be generous. There's other words. Since you hit me with that question so quick.
But generous, that's a good way to be though when you look at it.
Yes.
Well, Doc, we certainly appreciate you being on one-on-one, and we appreciate what you brought to Houma. We're glad you came to Houma via a card game.
I'm glad I came too.
And we certainly enjoy your sense of humor when we see you in social settings, and thanks for what you bring to our area. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.